Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 128 based on novel. So let's start. Measuring out the height and thickness of the sky may have dealt a severe blow to Qin Mu and the rest, but Tao Master Lin Xian had suffered the greatest blow. Tao sect's teachings, techniques, and divine arts were all built on the foundation of Tao follows the nature. To search for the essence of all living things through nature was the origin of their techniques, divine arts, and even frame of mind. And then Tao Master Lin Xian discovered that the astronomical phenomenon of nature was fake. With that kind of situation, it was no wonder his frame of mind would collapse. What kind of great Tao could be comprehended by comprehending a fake nature? The legs of Tao Master Lin Xian, who was walking forward by himself, suddenly went soft, and he knelt onto the ground with a thump. His expression was stupefied, and his eyes were blank. A few Taoists immediately went forward to help him up, only to hear their Tao Master mutter, "The 14th writing of Tao sword had never been cultivated before, and Master used his whole life to comprehend it. Only then was his talent and learning enough, but he still couldn't succeed in cultivating it." It turns out it was not that he couldn't do it, it was because all the nature is fake. How could he succeed in cultivating it if the nature he comprehended was fake? Cough, cough. He coughed violently, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He was devastated. Tao follows the nature was the teaching of Tao sect, yet the nature was fake. The impact he received from learning this could be imagined. Qin Mu looked at Xu Xinghua and asked, "Is the sky in your high heavens the same as this sky?" Xu Xinghua raised his head to look at the sky before nodding. The same sky, the same stars, high heavens was no exception. Qin Mu saying that he was an abandoned person wasn't false at all. The sky was a cage, and no matter if it was high heavens or great ruins, they were all birds that didn't know they were in a cage. Qin Mu composed his heart, and walked to Tao Master Lin Xian's side to help him up. He said in a low voice, "The truth is cold and hard to accept, so it's best to not make it public. Chase after the few Taoists that had run away, and don't let them talk nonsense. You need to protect some of their hope." Tao Master Lin Xian looked at him, straight in the eyes, with a weird expression. He asked in a hoarse voice, "Do you think people will believe what they say?" Qin Mu smiled and said, "People will believe you. You are asking me not to say." Tao Master Lin Xian filled with scorn, and he chuckled. Our previous Tao Masters and countless other Taoists had all wanted to solve the 14th writing of Tao sword. They spent immeasurable effort comprehending the nature of heaven and earth, yet the 14th writing of Tao sect seemed to be an insurmountable peak, an impossible to solve conjecture. But in the end, it all comes to the astronomical phenomenon being wrong. He, how mocking, truly King mocking. Even though he was the Tao Master of Tao sect, a sacred ground, he was still a youth in his nature, so he couldn't help spitting out a few vulgarities. The previous Tao Masters of Tao sect didn't know where the mistake was, so they couldn't succeed in cultivating the 14th sword, but now you know. Maybe Tao Master Lin Xian can be the first person to succeed in cultivating the 14th sword. Qin Mu said meaningfully. Tao Master Lin Xian's heart trembled slightly, and he turned to look at him. Crisis. Danger lies together with opportunity. The situation now is a danger and an opportunity at the same time. Qin Mu smiled and added, "Ordinary people can only see the danger, but wise people can see the opportunity that lies with the danger. However, only those with the abilities can be able to grasp this opportunity." Which kind of person is Tao Master? Tao Master Lin Xian's chest heaved up and down. He'd seen that the sky was fake and the astronomical phenomenon was also fake earlier. That had halted the progress of Tao sect's path, skills, and divine arts, causing everyone to not be able to comprehend the final marvel of Tao sword. However, Qin Mu's words made him see the opportunity. Since he knew what was fake, he should go and see the real thing. In that case, there would be a possibility of cultivating the 14th writing of Tao Sword. I accept wholeheartedly you being the human emperor. Tao Master composed himself and said, I feel that the debate between the teachings of Tao sect and heavenly devil cult can finally be put to a rest. Qin Mu nodded. I was thinking the same thing. I think we can form an alliance, and when our abilities grow enough, we will be able to pierce through this sky. Wang Muren walked over and stretched out his palm while saying, Wang Muren of Little Jade Capital is willing to form an alliance with Human Emperor and Tao sect. Qin Mu and Daoist Lin Xian stretched out their palms as well. Qin Mu turned around to look at Xu Xinghua, who walked over and stretched out his palm as well. Xu Xinghua of High Heavens is willing to form an alliance with Human Emperor, Tao sect, and Little Jade Capital. Now, shouldn't our alliance have a name? Wang Muren smiled and said, why don't we call it Heaven Alliance? The three of them said in unison, great. Heaven Alliance it shall be. The four of them pulled back their palms, and Tao Master Lin Xian nodded to everyone before bringing all the experts of Tao sect to leave. Lord Qin, should we tell this to the Emperor? Hua Shanling went forward to ask with a low voice. Of course, the Emperor has to know, Qin Mu said. However, only tell the Emperor, don't spread it to others, be careful of your head falling off. Hua Shanling immediately nodded and called the other officials of Department of Sky Supervision before hurrying away. Wang Muren let out a shaky breath and said, Human Emperor, please forgive me. I will have to tell this to Senior Uncle Qingyu. Qin Mu nodded and said, Immortal Qingyu knows what to say and what not to say. Feel free to tell him. Senior sister, find senior brother Long Yu. I shall go find senior uncle. Wang Muren said to Mu Qingdai. The two of them then immediately split ways. Now only Qin Mu, Xu Xinghua, and Jing Yang were left. Qin Mu glanced at Xu Xinghua and said, Brother Xu seemed to not be astonished in the least. Even Tao Master couldn't help his surprise, and his face lost color once his mind was shaken to the core. Yet Brother Xu still looked as usual. I'm really impressed. Even I had lost my composure just now, so my cultivation of frame of mind is still slightly inferior to that of Brother Xu. Xu Xinghua's expression remained the same when he said, I'm astonished and I'm still in shock. I had originally thought high heavens was high above, far from the mortal world. Never did I expect us to be in the same cage as well. The blow of that is extreme. Qin Mu examined him, but couldn't see any expression of shock. He asked suspiciously, really? Cult Master Qin, my young master looks like this when he is shocked. He at most reveals a slight frown, Jing Yang said in a low voice. Qin Mu frowned. And when he's not astonished? He's also like this. Qin Mu was flabbergasted. Xu Xinghua raised his head to look at the sky and suddenly said, Brother Qin, what do you think is beyond the sky? I don't know. Qin Mu chose to walk back to the capital and said, when we have the ability, we will take a look. Xu Xinghua followed him, and the three of them entered the city. Xu Xinghua and Jing Yang returned to their smithy, while Qin Mu went to Imperial College. Numerous algebra experts in Imperial College had already confirmed the space algebra model of the Golden Book. Tao sect had made a copy and the palace also had a copy. Hermit Qing Yu had also made a copy, while another copy was left in Imperial College. Of course, Heavenly Devil Cult also got a copy. Establishing the Golden Book meant that the experts of Cult Master level, who were stuck on Divine Bridge Realm, had the possibility for a breakthrough. This would result in a huge batch of gods. Of course, not everyone would be able to connect the Divine Bridge. In order to cultivate the techniques in the Golden Book, one needed to have very high attainments in algebra. If their attainments weren't high, they still wouldn't be able to patch the divine bridge even if they had received the techniques and space algebra model of the Golden Book. Qin Mu returned to his residence and saw Hermit Qin Yu, village chief, and the rest with grim faces. Wang Muren was at the side, so it was obvious that he had already told them about what Qin Mu and the others had found out. "I've thought of a person." Village chief raised his head to look at the sky and suddenly said in a daze, maybe he would know some details. "Dao friend Qin Yu, do you know who I'm talking about?" "I know, the person who raised his knives at heaven." Hermit Qin Yu's gaze flickered. "Heaven knife?" Qin Mu was slightly stunned. "Grandpa Butcher. Rumors say that Heaven Knife raised his knives at heaven, and many people had seen that scene. His knife sliced open the sky and gods appeared. He fought with the gods until his corpse fell back into the mortal world. He was known as the craziest martial maniac, and if it wasn't for that battle, Heaven Knife wouldn't have vanished without a trace." Hermit Qin Yu then added, "If Heaven Knife didn't leave back then, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor wouldn't have been able to use his sword skill school to defeat Battle Technique School. He wouldn't have been known as Sword God. The god that had fought with Heaven Knife wasn't from high heavens, but had actually come from outer space. I didn't think of it before, but now that I do, Heaven Knife should know many things. Some time ago, Heaven Knife and Spear God came to my little jade capital as guests, but they left immediately after they sensed the auras of the gods from high heavens. It's a pity we have no idea where they went after." Village chief pondered it over and said, "That maniac must have gone to find the fake gods of high heavens. Ever since his waist was reattached, he has always been in a half-crazed state. If Blind wasn't with him, who knows what trouble he would have caused. He knows many secrets, so we shall go and find him. Mua, let's go and find Butcher." Qin Mu hesitated for a moment. "Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor still owes me 100 treasures, and he is returning to the capital soon." Village chief shook his head. "The treasures in Roland's Golden Palace are worthy to look at. Grandmaster of Roland's Golden Palace is none other than a rag and bone man. Cripple wouldn't even look at the treasures that guy had collected in his past lifetimes." Qin Mu hesitated for a moment, then called Hu Linga over and instructed her, "Linga, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor owes me 100 treasures, so after he returns to the capital, help me collect them." Hu Linga's eyes instantly shone, and she smiled. "Young master, what treasures?" "He will bring treasures back from Roland's Golden Palace, and we can choose any 100 of them," Qin Mu said. Hu Linga was overjoyed, but she hesitated and said, "Young master, my judgment isn't as good as yours. I'm afraid I won't be able to choose the good ones. I shall teach you 9 Heavens Eyes Awakening skill, so you can awaken your eyes, and see what treasures are worth it." Qin Mu taught 9 Heavens Eyes Awakening skill to Hu Linga before waking the dragon Chileen. He placed Village Chief on its back and said, "Village Chief, how can we find Grandpa Butcher?" "Very simple. I'll just have to let out my aura, and I will be able to alarm the visitors from high heavens. I can also alarm Butcher and Blind as well. In this way, they will know about us. The visitors from high heavens will definitely release their auras to challenge me. After we go over, we will be able to see Butcher and Blind," Village Chief said indifferently. He then added softly, "It's time to settle our deals with the visitors of high heavens." He was about to release his aura when he suddenly revealed an astonished expression. Hermit Qin Yu and the rest of the strong practitioners of Little Jade Capital also looked over in the same direction with shock. Qin Mu was about to ask, when he also felt terrifying pulses emanating over. "It's those fellows from high heavens. Weird. I haven't even let out my aura, and they already revealed their location. Not right, they have started fighting." Village Chief muttered. He then cried out, "The 4 sovereigns of high heavens are massacring each other. Mua, I shall go ahead first." Boom. A huge bang came from the rocking chair, and village chief disappeared from the dragon Chilean's back. A few more tremors swept over as Qin Mu, Yu He and Yu Yun, the three old immortals, also vanished into thin air. Muren, after Qingdai finds Long Yu, you guys shall hurry over. Immortal Qing Yu's voice said from the distance. Wang Muren rode his buck over and shook his head. The old people are really worrisome. Qin Mu was astonished. Your side as well? Wang Muren nodded and said, there are 13 such elders in Little Jade Capital. Including the newly arrived old Daoist and old monk, we have 15 of them now. Qin Mu smiled and said, my village only has 8.5, so I can be said to be slightly luckier. Luckily, I have senior sister Qingdai and senior brother Long Yu to help me share the burden, Wang Muren said. Qin Mu's face blackened. He was the only young person in their village. Granny Sai was also young, of course, however, she always liked to act old. The two of them walked forward at a steady pace, while waiting for Mu Qingdai to find Long Yu. Not long later, she dragged Long Yu back, who looked slipshod. He had removed all of his clothing, and when Mu Qingdai found him, he was sprinting around in the capital city only in his underpants, dancing and singing while babbling nonsense. At that time, Mu Qingdai gave this big senior brother 3 slaps to wake him up. Long Yu then spat out a few mouthfuls of blood that had clotted his heart, and followed her with his head held low. Wang Muren let the two of them sit on the back of the buck. Even though Long Yu was no longer crazy, he had still crumbled. Qin Mu smiled and said, senior brother Long Yu, what's the difference between knowing and not knowing? How high and thick is the sky? The sky is there, no matter if you know about it or don't. It is still there. Maintain your heart as usual and work hard to cultivate. You should focus on breaking the sky, and going outside once you have gained enough strength. I understand what human emperor is trying to convey, but whenever I think that all of this is fake, I can't help losing my fighting spirit, Long Yu said sorrowfully. Qin Mu understood this kind of feeling. Not everyone could walk out of the shadow as fast as Tao Master Lin Xian. The astronomical phenomenon was fake, and this incident dealt the greatest blow to Tao Master Lin Xian. However, Long Yu didn't have the position and the responsibility of Tao Master Lin Xian, so his ability to handle shock was slightly inferior. However, given enough time, Long Yu would also walk out of the shadow. Since senior brother Long Yu is here, let us hurry on our way. Wang Muren gave an order, and clouds immediately grew under the buck's feet as it rose into to leave. The dragon Chilean immediately followed after, and the buck looked back with a disdainful glance, increasing its speed. The dragon Chilean was furious and tried his best to keep up. After 100 miles of running, the dragon Chilean started to pant heavily with his eyes rolling backward. There's no need for me to stoop to the level of a dumb buck, right? Cult Master, I'm right, aren't I? We are not competing in speed, but in endurance. Qin Mu acknowledged it with a black face. The dragon Chilean slowed down and looked at the buck, bringing Wang Muren and the rest to disappear into the distance. The dragon Chilean ran 5,000 miles, and was so tired that he couldn't catch his breath. He whined for a break, so Qin Mu allowed him a stop. He made a fire to cook a meal while the dragon Chilean snored while sprawled on the ground. Once Qin Mu finished eating and drinking, he called the dragon Chilean for quite some time, before he slowly crawled up and hurried along unwillingly. He ran from day to night and night to day, yet still couldn't see the buck, nor Wang Muren and the rest. That dumb buck's endurance isn't bad as well, Fatty Dragon said ashamedly. Qin Mu acknowledged it with a black face, and threw over 1 scarlet fire spirit pill. Your rations for today. The dragon Chilean was aware of his own incompetence and carefully licked the pill. He didn't dare to eat it in one mouthful. After licking it for over a dozen times, he finally finished it. In the end, Qin Mu couldn't bear to be so cruel and grabbed some more for him. The dragon Qin was elated, and he immediately ate all of them. He said, "Cult Master, don't worry. I will run with all my life and will definitely catch up to that dumb buck." "That buck isn't dumb, my dragon Qin is the dumb one," Qin Mu criticized. The dragon Qin sprinted through the sky. Not long later, lingering notes of a flute reached them, and Qin Mu looked around in astonishment. The dragon Qin was running in mid-air, and even though his speed couldn't be compared to that of the buck from Little Jade Capital, it wasn't slow. Wind howled past them as he moved. For the sound of the flute to be able to reach them, it couldn't have been played by an ordinary person. As Qin Mu thought that, the dragon Qin suddenly swayed his head to follow the sound of the flute as though he was drunk. He sprinted down from the sky. The sound of the flute was very charming. It played a style of folk song that was sometimes high and sometimes low, sounding very cheerful and light-hearted. Thus the dragon Qin also danced around in the sky, skipping here and there in glee. His big tail whooshed as he swept it around. Another long note came from the flute, and the dragon Qin sprinted straight downwards, into a forest. "Fatty dragon, stop!" Qin Mu immediately shouted, but what could it help when the dragon Qin seemed to be entranced? He totally couldn't hear those words and seemed to not have any control of his own body as he rushed straight down. Qin Mu hurriedly rose into the sky and flashed to the front of the dragon Qin. He pressed his two hands on the dragon Qilin's head and pushed with force as he shouted, "Fatty dragon, wake up." He used the incantations of Buddhism, and his voice boomed like thunder. However, the dragon Qin continued to rush forward as though he heard nothing. Qin Mu erupted with all his strength, but he still couldn't fight against the strength of the dragon Qin. He got pushed into the forest, and cold sweat started to drip from Qin Mu's forehead. The sound of the flute was becoming clearer and louder. He turned back to take a look and saw a huge red flood dragon coiled around the mountain, with its huge head lying on the ground. Its mouth was wide open like a gigantic cave, while its teeth were like sharp stalactites that were dripping with saliva. The sound of the flute was coming from the head of the red dragon where a girl in a long dress was sitting. Even though the song was cheerful, the girl's face was ice cold. "Long Jianan." Qin Mu was astonished and looked around in a hurry. The flood dragon should belong to the Dragon King, and since it was there with the girl, did it mean that the Dragon King was nearby as well? The melodious sound of the flute meandered, and the dragon Qin ran happily toward the mouth of the flood dragon. A cold gaze flashed across Qin Mu's eyes as carefree sword rose into the air. 8,000 swords instantly flew out and shot towards Long Jianan without any explanation. She sneered at him, and the tail of the red flood dragon swept over. Countless swords clanked as they hit the tail, bouncing backward. Qin Mu's heart sunk. This flood dragon was an existence of cult master level, in other words, way too strong. It would be hard for him to escape. At that moment, a huge hand suddenly stretched down from the sky as a voice that boomed like thunder rang out, "What luck, to be able to pick up a flood dragon just by coming down to the mortal world to take a stroll." The hand, which was covered in rough scales, grabbed toward the red flood dragon. The large creature filled with terror, its expression betraying it, and actually turned limp. The dragon Qin also collapsed on the ground, not daring to move. Long Jianan immediately gathered her vital qi to play the flute, but the red flood dragon just shrunk into itself and didn't move at all. Long Jianan immediately flew up and avoided the hand, but that hand did not mind her. It picked the red flood dragon of the Dragon King with a gently grasp before pulling it into the clouds. The voice in the sky laughed then. "There's also a dragon of the Qin breed, but a pity it's too young. I shall come back for it after letting it grow for a few more years." Coming down to the mortal world is truly good, got a flood dragon. Qin Mu's mind was blown as he raised his head to look up. In the clouds, there was a giant that flying in the sky while stepping on 2 flood dragons, one green and one red. On his ears hung 2 yellow flood dragons as well. God! Qin Mu shook his head and found it hard to compose himself. When he looked over once more, the green and red flood dragons had slithered forward, carrying the god toward the south. My father's dragon! Long Jianan screeched and sprinted to the south frantically. Qin Mu suppressed the astonishment in his heart and raised his hand to summon Carefree Sword back. With a stab, 8,000 swords transformed into a sword cloud, which suddenly rained down, covering the entire mountain mound. Long Jianan grunted and slithered around like a huge snake to avoid the sword lights. However, there was some that she couldn't avoid and was stabbed. Long Jianan, do you still remember? I said if you lay your hands on me again, I will not show you mercy anymore. Qin Mu woke up the dragon Qilin with a kick while he rushed forward. With his sword lights whooshing up like a tidal wave, he attacked Long Jianan. Her body moved like a spirit snake, at an extremely fast speed, but the next moment, Qin Mu's speed burst forth as he rose into the air, rushing forward with his sword cloud. Long Jianan hissed continuously, as she circulated her magic power to execute divine arts to take on the sword lights. The dragon Qilin woke up and hurriedly rushed forward. When he roared, the vibrations confused Long Jianan. Even though she was a strong practitioner of 7 Stars realm, she was still lacking when faced with the dragon Qilin. Her aura dispersed from the roar, and Qin Mu immediately took that chance. With his sword fingers stabbing down, countless flying swords circled around Carefree Sword and went toward Long Jianan like a single huge treasure sword. Who dares to bully my son? Suddenly, a thick and heavy voice rang out, and Qin Mu's heart trembled violently. The Dragon King is here. He hurriedly recalled his swords, wishing to escape as a dragon-shaped dark cloud rushed toward them at a rapid speed, but Long Jianan raised her head to shout, "Father, it's the heavenly devil cult master." Qin Mu rushed to the front of the dragon Qilin and shouted, "Fatty dragon, I've raised you for 1,000 days to be all paid back in this hour, quickly run." The dragon Qilin was about to exert all his force to sprint, when his 4 limbs turned numb again, making him sprawl over on the ground. He shouted, "Cult master, it's back." "What's back?" Qin Mu raised both of his hands and picked the dragon Qilin up. He was about to run away when the sky turned dark again, and a thunderous voice rang out, "I'm still lacking a virgin male and a virgin female to raise the dragons, and it just so happens that I can take the 2 of you." The dragon Qilin was completely limp as though he was dead. He was totally paralyzed. Only then did Qin Mu understand what was back. His world started to spin, and his body landed on the cloud against his wishes. With him was Long Jianan, who was also still in shock. "Where's sorcerer from? Place my son down." The sound of the Dragon King came from a distance, closing in rapidly. Qin Mu saw 2 thick and sturdy legs beside him in the cloud, covered in rough scales. In the cloud under those 2 legs, there were 2 flood dragons flying forward, carrying them to the south. He raised his head to take a look and saw a giant that was over 30 yards in height. His clothes fluttered in the wind, revealing his face covered in scales. His brow ridge was high and there were horns on his head. Noisy bug. The god gave a flick, and the Dragon King of Dragon Rider sect flew backward, spewing blood in the air. He crashed into a huge mountain, and his life and death were unknown. Virgin male and virgin female, serve my dragons well. The god lowered his head to look at the 2 of them in the clouds, and grinned to show his mouth, which was full of sharp teeth. "Otherwise, I will use you 2 as toothpicks." Qin Mu placed the dragon Qilin down and said bravely, "Senior, my primordial yang is long discharged, and I'm no longer a virgin male." Long Jianan immediately said as well, "My primordial yin is also long discharged, and I'm also not a virgin female." That god sneered and said, "In that case, there's no use keeping you alive, I shall eat then. I'm a virgin male." Qin Mu said righteously. "But this naughty girl is no longer a virgin female, so may Senior please kill her." Long Jianan pounced forward and shouted, "Rascal, it's all because of you that I'm like this." Buddha rays burst forth from Qin Mu's hand as he collided with her. Their bodies trembled violently, and Long Jianan's beautiful hair suddenly fell to the ground, revealing bald patches. The skin of her face also suddenly turned loose. Qin Mu's qi and blood fluctuated. He was about to make another move when he was suddenly stunned. He didn't continue to attack. On the East Sea, Long Jianan had almost died under the combined attacks of Ling Yuxiu and Cai Yinxiang. She tried her best to shed her skin, but she had exhausted her lifespan for that. Even though she was taken away by Dao Master, she had yet to recover. When clashing with Qin Mu, the wig on her head had fallen apart, and the pulled-tight skin had also turned loose. Long Jianan noticed her hair falling off and cried out in astonishment. She immediately grabbed here and there to pick up her hair. Every time she caught a lock, she would try to stick it back on her head, but since the wig had already fallen apart, how could she stick it back together? "Sister Long, you don't have much of your lifespan left. If you don't fight with your life, you can still live like an ordinary person for dozens of years. But if you make a move on me, I won't even need to kill you. A severe injury will be enough to make sure you'll have no chance at survival." Qin Mu shook his head and said, "It's impossible for you to take revenge on me in this life anymore. So what is this for? You are the one who reduced me to this state, and you are still being sarcastic." Long Jianan shouted out. "You are the one who harmed yourself and your father, and the Dragon King is also someone who harmed you. I'm not responsible for it. Pushing the blame on me is nothing more than you trying to find someone to vent your anger on." Qin Mu examined the thick and sturdy legs beside him and raised his head to take a look. The god was currently looking down, but not at them. Instead, he was surveying the terrain of Eternal Peace Empire. It was obvious that the god paid no attention to them and felt that they posed no threat to him. Their only use was to help him raise his dragons. Qin Mu composed himself and calculated his chances of escaping if he executed heaven-pilfering divine legs. Then he immediately banished the thought. Even though heaven-pilfering divine legs were fast and he could surpass the speed of sound by 4 times and more if he exerted his full force, he could only maintain that state for a very short time. His vital qi would be completely exhausted in 7 minutes, and so would his body. Based on the speed of the 2 flood dragons under the god's feet, he could create a distance between them, but they wouldn't find it hard to catch up to him once he faltered. Besides, the rubbish that was the dragon Qilin was paralyzed and couldn't stand up no matter what. If Qin Mu had to carry the dragon Qilin on the distance he could cover would be limited. The dragon Qilin was simply too fat and too heavy. Isn't it just raising a dragon? I'm raising fatty dragon every day, so it'll be simple to me. Qin Mu sat down, the body of a flood dragon under his buttocks. With skill in his hands, he was not afraid. If he could even raise fatty dragon, how could he not raise flood dragons? "How do we address Senior?" Qin Mu asked loudly. "You can call me Dragon Rearing Sovereign." The god's voice boomed like thunder when he spoke while looking around. "I'm a god from high heavens, and as long as you serve my dragons well, I will spare your lives. Not only that, I will even bring you away from this mortal world to high heavens to enjoy life as you raise my dragons." Long Jianan's eyes lit up, and she said loudly, "Founder, I'm a disciple of Dragon Rider sect. Dragon Rider sect is the sect that you founded." Qin Mu suddenly shuddered. "Crap! This Dragon Rearing Sovereign is the founder of Dragon Rider sect." He couldn't help regretting asking the god how to address him. Now that Long Jianan had established their relationship, he was going to die. He wanted to flee, but no matter how much he kicked the dragon Qin, the fatty just lay on the limply, unable to get up. I'm skilled in a specialized area. I'm skilled in a specialized area. Qin Mu consoled himself, while trying to regain his composure. Dragon Rider Sect. The two dragons below Dragon Rearing Sovereign's feet paused, and the god lowered his head to look at Long Jianan. With bewilderment, he said, I indeed founded this sect, but that was something long ago. Founding Dragon Rider Sect was just something I found interesting at that time. That's why I didn't bother myself with it after going to high heavens. You are the disciple of Dragon Rider Sect. Who was the idiot who called you his son just now? Long Jianan was both surprised and delighted. She immediately knelt down and kowtowed. That's disciple's father, the current Dragon Rider Sect master. His cultivation is so weak, to actually be flicked off by me. He won't die, though. The two dragons under Dragon Rearing Sovereign's feet started to descend, and he said, Since you are a disciple of Dragon Rider Sect, I won't make things difficult for you. You seem to have damaged your vital qi, so here's a dragon bead for you to nurse yourself. Even though it won't return your beauty to what it was, it can still replenish your vitality and extend your lifespan. A bright orange bead flew down from above, and Long Jianan grabbed it. She then kowtowed repeatedly while saying sternly, Founder, that man is a nemesis of our Dragon Rider Sect, the one person that eradicated it. Qin Mu shrunk his neck back and shook his head. Maiden Long, please do not accuse my innocence person. Look at my cultivation. How could I eradicate your Dragon Rider Sect? It's such a big sacred ground with as many experts as a cow has hair. Each and every one of them has remarkable abilities and are extraordinary. On top of that, the dragons they raise are all powerful beings. So how would I have the ability to eradicate them? Dragon Rearing Sovereign examined him. He was clearly a very honest youth, and looked much more reliable than Long Jianan. This honest child that's as weak as a chicken can eradicate a sect that I founded. Are you guys that weak? Long Jianan gritted her teeth and shouted, This brat summoned a devil god which killed my entire sect. With an honest face, Qin Mu stuttered as he tried to defend himself. When did I do that? I learned the art of healing when I was young and am acclaimed as the divine physician. Every day, I prescribe medicine and raise a dragon Qin, feeding him until he got so plump. How could I summon a devil god to harm people? Not only are you slandering me, you are even insulting me. Long Jianan was furious and jumped over to choke him. She screeched, You are the heavenly devil cult master, and your mind is full of evil ideas to harm people. You are the devil among the devils. Qin Mu couldn't take a breath, and his eyes rolled upward. This video will end here.